So when I first started this channel, I hoped that it wouldn't be a place for me to just tear down or criticize, but instead to offer ideas. Yet, after the other night's disappointing Battle of Winterfell, I do feel like I have to interject a little bit of criticism. While there are a lot of particular things I could get into about the battle, I want to focus on the climax. Namely, D&D's choice to have Arya assassinate the Night King, and why it actually should have been Theon. While I'm seeing a lot of people upset that the White Walkers didn't make it south, or that we didn't get more lore, or that Jon didn't get to prove himself as Azor Ahai and wield a magic sword against the Dark Lord, I believe these criticisms miss the bigger picture, and would have had the same problem as Arya vanquishing death in a sneak attack. Namely, all of these are problematic due to a lack of meaning.
Vengeance has consumed you. It's consuming them. I'm done letting it consume me. Justice will come soon enough.
When we look at the resolutions of truly great fantasy epics, there is a common thread that the protagonist tends to defeat the antagonist not through overcoming them in a physical confrontation, but by overcoming what the antagonist represents in an internal or spiritual sense. For example, The Lord of the Rings famously has Frodo reach the crack of doom only to succumb to temptation and lose his will to destroy the ring. Instead, the ring is destroyed in what Tolkien dubs a eucatastrophe, when Gollum arrives and fights Frodo for the ring, and in the ensuing scuffle, the ring falls to its accidental destruction. While Tolkien easily could have had Frodo's will triumph over Sauron's, or Aragorn simply defeat Sauron in a sword fight, he instead chooses to champion not individual strength of will or skill in battle, but rather the virtue of mercy. It's Frodo, Bilbo, Sam, and Aragorn's pity towards Gollum, which ultimately proves to be humanity's true salvation. An ending which I've come to find truly beautiful in its humility. Or take Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi. The film easily could have culminated in Luke Skywalker killing Darth Vader and the Emperor with his lightsaber. But that would have merely been a victory in the physical realm, not a victory over the things which the dark side truly represents, such as hatred and anger. Luke achieves true victory by overcoming the lure of those darker emotions and seeing good in his father, prompting Darth Vader to live up to his son's expectations and save him from the Emperor, thereby overcoming the Sith and restoring balance to the Force. We can even take Harry Potter. When Harry faces Voldemort at the very end, he's already won because he was willing to sacrifice everything for his friends, and the magic of that sacrifice ends up protecting them from Voldemort. That, and the camaraderie between Harry and his friends, is ultimately what gives him his triumph over the Dark Lord. In all of these cases, the victory that matters is not the physical victory, it's the spiritual one, the protagonist's conceptual victory over what the antagonist represents.
What do we say to the god of death?
Not today.
The problem with Arya killing the Night King is not any lack of setup, because it is set up, or that Arya isn't Azor Ahai or a chosen one, but that she is a chosen one. Melisandre makes that clear. Arya defeats the Night King by being a magically trained super assassin, who happens to be better than the Night King and everyone else at hand-to-hand combat. In the end, Arya makes it look easy, and that's not such a good thing. By emphasizing Arya's surprise physical mastery over the Night King, the show undercuts the primary conflict. And while many enjoyed the callback to the "not today" quip, it's ultimately not the answer the episode needed, because it says nothing for the countless people who actually gave their lives fighting. While Arya was able to defeat death with superior knife skills and come out mostly unscathed, for thousands of others, that just wasn't possible. In fact, the major problem with the Battle of Winterfell is that it had too much of our plot-armored characters saying "not today" and miraculously surviving the unsurvivable, and not enough of what Sansa mentions, which is staring the truth in the face. Not enough of death as a real inevitability, as it was for Beric, Jorah, and Theon. By sparing virtually all the fan-favorite characters in the midst of what was meant to be the apocalypse, the showrunners kind of just killed the episode and the White Walker storyline. And to be honest, after years of theorizing, I'd never really come up with a solution for how to kill the Night King that felt satisfying. I'd thought about everything from a mind battle with Bran to Daenerys becoming a Night Queen to a magic baby, and nothing really felt right. The Night King is supposed to be death, and death really is an enemy that cannot be overcome. Yet, just before the show killed the Night King in the most shallow way I'd ever considered, the show accidentally stumbled right past the ideal solution to the dilemma of the Night King, which was Theon Greyjoy.
I want to fight for Winterfell, Lady Sansa. If you'll have me.
For every reason that it was shallow to have Arya or Jon or Jaime or Daenerys be the one to vanquish death, Theon was perfect. Unlike the others, Theon wasn't a great fighter or a famed knight. He wasn't particularly noble or brave. He wasn't a mythic savior or anyone's chosen one. No, Theon chose himself. Theon was just a flawed, tortured, frightened person trying to be a good man in the face of death. As Theon stares down the Night King, we get what was hands down the most beautiful moment of the episode, where Bran thanks Theon and assures him that he's a good man. This moment is not only poignant because of how it rectifies Bran's failure to adequately thank Hodor and Meera for their sacrifice, or even just what it means for Theon to receive affirmation from the boy he once betrayed. This moment was beautiful because their exchange speaks to the predicament of every living soul who stood and fought for one another in the face of unimaginable dread. Regardless of previous mistakes they'd made or what side they'd been on that night, they were all good men and women, and they all deserved thanks. Essentially, Bran Stark was Gerard Way, and Theon the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned. As Theon made his final stand to protect Bran, he embodied everyone at Winterfell who, despite their pain, weakness, and fear, chose to stand up for life itself. Despite its flaws, The Long Night serves as an exploration of the question of how we face death. And it wasn't Jon or the fan favorite Arya, but Theon Greyjoy who most genuinely demonstrated the answer. Not by sneaking or calling upon tricked out assassin skills or by cleverly quipping "not today," but by facing death head on to protect what really matters, letting death claim him and claiming it in return. Which is why the greyest of the Greyjoys should have died taking the Night King with him. While I know many didn't like that it was Arya because they were hoping for a climactic sword fight between Jon and the Night King, that ultimately would have just been Game of Thrones becoming the fairy tale it set out to subvert. As Martin has stated, Theon is sort of meant a dark mirror to Jon Snow, especially as far as the show is concerned. Jon is the handsome fantasy hero that we wish for, and Theon is the flawed hero that's true. While Jon constantly survives perilous situations, growing each time into a better fighter and more respected leader, Theon is tortured, dismembered, and never the same again. While Jon is magically brought back from the dead unscathed, Theon realistically spends several seasons struggling with PTSD, trying to salvage some small part of himself. While Jon gets to ride dragons and make love to princesses, Theon settles for modest little acts of redemption. Which is why the subversion we needed was not to trade out one chosen badass for another, but to have the plan that was set up for the ideal hero to instead give us the controversial one. Exactly how this could have worked logistically is not super important. Maybe Theon goes full Mordred and lets the Night King fatally stab him so he can get close enough. Maybe the Night King could have underestimated the level of pain Theon is able to endure. Maybe Theon gets back up and Bran uses mind powers to stall the Night King long enough for Theon to strike him down, before succumbing to his wounds and dying. The point is that the Night King needed to be defeated, not in a fan service twist that emphasizes fighting prowess, or the fantasy sword fight we've all seen before, but in a way that championed the collective spiritual struggle of flawed characters facing certain death. Anyways, feel free to tell me what you think in the comments, and for a full episode review, catch me on the Wolfpunch Podcast. But as for me, I say Theon was the real star of the Long Night. In the end, he may not have gotten the glory, but he was the hero that we deserved.
And his dead may never die.
But kill the bastards anyway.